I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. A few weeks ago, I had a friend of mine here, William Blackshear, and he talked about project restoration, and he mentioned that he wrote a book about his life from where he started to where he is right now. And I said, you got to come back so we can talk about your book. So here he is again. Thank you for joining me again.
You're welcome. It's a privilege again to come back on your show, and as I told you, talk about the book From Hell to Grace. And what is it that you want to know at this time? So
your book, why did you decide to write it, first off?
As I continue to tell, I'm a motivational speaker, so I also travel a lot. And so as I continue to do talk shows, and I've been on talk shows and speaking engagement, a lot of people kept saying, God, that's remarkable what you've been through. You know you got a book in you. I knew that, but was getting away from it because I just felt better to talk about it than writing it. So it kept being impressed upon me to write it. Well, finally, I got that chance, and I wrote the book. Didn't know the extent of writing a book, that once you write a book, it's got to go through proofing and editing, and then the release date.
It's a lot of steps.
Right, then the release date. So that's what inspired me to kind of tell my story all in one time in this book.
So the title is From Hell to Grace. Now, what do you mean from hell to grace?
Well, as I talked about before on the show, the stuff that I endured growing up at home, I consider that hell.
Let's remind our viewers about some of the things we talked about before about your growing up, because they may have missed that show.
Sure. I talked about, you know, in my home there was a lot of physical, there was a lot of sexual abuse. The physical abuse came from my dad, the sexual abuse came from my uncles. Also about the neglect of my dad sending me to bed without eating for the whole weekend. There was times that he would buy everybody school clothes but me, you know, form of punishment. And you know, just a hard life. My son died on Christmas Day when I was incarcerated, when I was 18 years old. So, you know, just had a hard life, you know, growing up, and just, you know, I equated to hell. You know,
well,
you know, after a while, you know, sometimes you say to yourself, God, all this hell that I'm going through, and that's just what came out of my mouth, you know.
So when you were growing up in your family, how many kids, brothers and sisters, did you have?
Eight.
Eight of you.
8 of us, and as I talked about in the show before, my dad comes from a family of 16.
Whew, 16 people.
Yes.
And so what are some other things that would happen to you when you were growing up, the hell part?
Well, from me being incarcerated, I talked about, like I said, my son died on Christmas Day. It led me to drugs and alcohol, gang life. I was in a gang, you know, way back then, almost now 17 something years ago, carrying guns and not caring whether I got shot or if I had to shoot someone. And, you know, anger, you know, just dealing with a lot of anger and resentment. And it's funny because on the cover of my book, I have a lot of flame going up, symbolizing hell, and I got some of the things that I've been through, the hell, the lust, and the resentment, and having those behaviors in you, the resentment and anger, bitterness, those can lead to a life of crime by itself, and that's what it did for me, because I was carrying this pain that I didn't share with nobody, or what I've been through when I was younger.
You said you were incarcerated. Was this just one time or several times?
Oh man, I've been incarcerated several times. Just off of, and it was always off of me stealing to survive. Because I grew up in a home where my dad sometimes withheld food for me or didn't buy me clothes. It was always me getting arrested for food shopping, sometimes clothes shopping. I had got a drugs charge. It got dismissed, but it kept going up the ladder. Drug charges and misdemeanors, and you know, nothing really violent. Praise God that it never went there. Nothing really nothing really violent, but it was just a lot of criminal activity.
Do you think, I was just wondering, your father, you said he abused you quite a bit. Did he just abuse you or your other siblings too?
Well, I don't, you know, I know I got abused. Whether or not some of the other family got abused, you know, it's up in the air, you know, this and that. You know, I try to remember when I was writing a book, Do I remember any of their abuse? I believe there was some abuse in other family members, but as I was told by a professional, you know, once you write the book and stuff, I had to leave that part out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And why did they say that?
You would have to go get, it's a lot of legal stuff. You got to get people to sign documents that you could put them in a book and talk about what they've been through and their event and stuff like that. So, yeah. I might have blocked out some of the stuff. It was abuse with not just me and the family, but they won't see it in the book From Hell to Grace.
That's a good thing that you don't do that, because they may not want to relive all of that.
It was even, I'm glad you said that. It took me a while to write this book because there was a point where I was on point writing this book. But it's a known fact that when you got to relive stuff, I got stuck. I got stuck into a year 1992, whatever event it was, and it would almost traumatize my mind. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder is a true thing, and I don't know, my emotions just would change, and it just through a lot of prayer and a lot of fasting that God saw me through to write this book.
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more about your book. Okay?
Yes.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to energy-saving bulbs. Saving energy saves you money.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself. But I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Hi, welcome back to Better You. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with William, and we're talking about his book, From Hell to Grace. Now, you've talked about a lot of things that you went through your early years. When you got into your 20s, were you going through the same things, going down the same path?
Yeah, it would be spurts in my life that I would turn it around, and it's funny, the times that I would turn it around, it was through broken love. That's a part in my book that I talk about, broken love. And I think a lot of people today is in broken love because we don't know what real love is. And broken love is just simply, you know, that somebody using you and you using them. They're in pain and you're in pain. And it's not really love. And so it's a lot of a lot of abuse going on even in that. Not necessarily physical abuse, but a lot of mental abuse. And I was in broken love where I was dating women who had kids, because I always loved kids. And they would use me and play me to get back to the baby father, but I didn't care because I didn't have nowhere to go in my 20s. I just needed a place to stay. And even the young lady, when my son died on Christmas Day, she was older than me, and she the one that had my child when I was in jail. The story was that the baby father was over there that night, and she put him in his bed with the other son, and he smothered them intentionally or accidentally. That's what I said to this day. They don't know what happened. So yes, I had a traumatized life, but it would seem to me that my life would always get on track away from the criminal and the drugs when I had a girlfriend, because I was looking for love. And so once that came into my life, I didn't care about the drugs and alcohol anymore. I just cared about now trying to capture that love that I didn't have when I was home.
But these women that you dated during that time, were they on drugs, alcohol?
No. I dated one girl who was on drugs, and that didn't last long because it was something about me where I was wise enough to know that I didn't want nobody who went down the same path I went down. I more dated girls who just allowed men in their past, like their kid's father, to use them. So I kind of dated those type of girls, a lot of those type of girls. They didn't have drug problems, but they had problem with low self-esteem.
Do you think you're attracted to them because you yourself had low self-esteem?
Yes, and it was a familiar place, comfortable place, not having to take my life to a higher level of not wearing my pain as a badge of honor. It was a place where I could feel safe and stay right there and not be challenged to let this stuff go.
So let's move on to the grace part. How did your life turn around, or what event happened in your life to turn everything around that you mentioned in the book?
Well, there's a part in my book where I talk about where when I moved down Charlotte, North Carolina, that I left all of my friends up there and I came down here after God allowed me to escape a life of crime. And it's so funny, I was working in the hotel. The enemy is real funny when he want to chase you and finish you off when he know that you're not following God. And so I'm working in a hotel and just out of the blue, I'm checking people out and I noticed this person, his back was turned to me, but you know when you with somebody for so long, you know, so I yelled out his name and asked him, you know, and he turned around slow. He was nervous and I was nervous. And he was like, what you doing down here? And I was like, how'd you get down here? So I'm like, wow, look at this. And this was one of my buddies that I ran with in New York. And so we started hanging out. You know, I never got back into selling drugs or anything like that, but I started hanging out with them, partying and, you know, having a good time and this and that. And then there was an incident that happened that one of the friends that he was friends with came to my job one day and I gave him a ride, and when I gave him a ride he was sweating and I was asking him, is he all right? And then he finally told me, he said, the Fed's following us. Oh God, I said, really? And so, you know, he was like, yeah, look at this blue car. So every time I would change lane, he would change lane. I said, oh, hello. So I started praying, Lord, please get me out of this. I know I told you I was going to come down here, get on the right track. You know, made a promise to God, didn't do it. And make a long story short, God allowed me to turn that corner. I told him, jump out. You know, he jumped out of my car. And from that point on, I turned my life over to God. And this was back in around 99. I turned my life over to God. And I never looked back. And, you know, and I sat down and I reminisce off of all the grace. Here's what grace represents that we don't understand. Grace was always there. This is what we don't, right. It was always there. When I was stealing, grace was there, okay? When I was gang banging, grace was there. What do that look like? God always covered me, okay? While I was carrying guns out there, I never got shot. I could have got shot. But grace was over me. Times that I went to jail, when I wound up getting a year and a half, I could have got 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Grace was following me. Times when me snorting cocaine, I could have dropped dead. Grace was covering me. So grace is, what we don't realize is grace is always there, okay? While you're in hell, grace is there. And that's what happened with me. I look back over my life and I was like, you know what, God? Wow, you always been there for me. I was thinking of times when I remember I went and do a cocaine run, buying drugs, and I was leaving New York, just coming out of Manhattan, and I got back on the turnpike, and it's funny, the cops pulled me over, and we kind of had like a half a key of brick cocaine, and it's funny because when he told the driver to get out the car, the driver slid it under my lap. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm trapped now. And instantly, I put the drugs under my arm, and it was snowing like crazy outside. And the officer stood in front of the door, opened the door for him, and said, now it's time for you to get out. And praise God, I asked him, could he back up? And when he backed up, he turned his back. Now, we all know officers usually back up with their hands on their gun. Well, this one backed up. That's grace. This one turned his head, and by the time he turned his head, I kind of put my hands on top of the car, and the cocaine dropped right in the snow, and it was already white. So he didn't see it, you know. So that's grace. And I encourage people to look back over their life, how many times close calls came to them, but grace was right there. That was only grace. You know, because I probably wouldn't be on this show now talking to you, because that was a lot, including the record that I had. So that's what grace represents. It just represents the goodness of God, unmerited favor that I don't even deserve. You know, having a business right now, writing a book right now, having a program right now, traveling right now. I'm engaged to be married soon. You know, so this is all the things that once you do put your life into God's hand, there's just extended grace. And the grace that I put on this book to show people is this. Your life is never over, no matter how much hell you've been through. But our number one thing that we have to do, we have to defeat the number 6. The number 6 represents man. We have a spirit of man-pleasing. Everything we do, just like this show, okay? Some people tell you, oh, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? That's man. That's man. And if we ain't careful, if we always listen to the opinion of man, you'll never get nowhere in life. Want to know why? Because nobody has the plan that God has given you. Okay? You have a plan, I have a plan. Okay? I can ask you. If I would have asked you, what do you think about the book that I wrote? Do you think I should put this title here? You would have said, with your own opinion, no, I think you should call this Purple Hearts. And I was like, well, that's not what I got. We'd have been arguing, but most likely my self-esteem would have got lower because I went to man. Now man told me what to do, but this is not what God told me to do, and it stunts your growth. And so when we become man pleasers, believe it or not, there's a lot of people who I believe that's authors. There's a lot of people who's TV hosts. Look at your show, A Better You.
We all have a story to tell.
What a good title, A Better You. Who don't want to hear that? What 9-year-old, if that would have been spoken into my life, that I'm a better person, you're a better you, come on. Those are words of encouragement, okay? And that's what this program brings, okay? That's the only reason why I'm here. I'm here because you realize, okay, there's a better you. After everything you've been through, there's a better you. And that's what people got to understand, that your title is catchy. A better you. That's an inspirational thing because it turns people's life around and say, me? Not me. I was smoking drugs. And somebody comes and say, there's still a better you. It makes them leave your presence like, wow, did you hear what that lady said about me? She said, it's a better you. That's the same thing with a little child when a father speaks into his daughter's life and say, it's a better you. Do you know it's a known fact that if a father speaks into his daughter's life, you won't see, she won't be promiscuous. Want to know why? Because when a dad doesn't speak into that little girl's life, she's going to look for attention any other way that she can get. Want to know why? Because it's a known fact that God has a man on earth to speak into a woman's life to groom her. And when a dad doesn't do that to his daughter, they wonder why she's 20 and dating somebody that's 40. Why she's 15 and dating somebody that's 35. Want to know why? Because what he didn't do, this guy did. Whether it's through manipulation or whether he's honest about what he's saying. The girl instantly falls in love with a guy like that. And we wonder why. Because she wasn't told there's a better you.
I know this is getting off subject just a little bit from your book, but your organization, do you mentor girls too and help them with this subject? My
stronger point is boys because of what I've been through. I do have a girls component that I have other female staff working with them, you know, so I do have one, but it's not as strong as the boys. But I don't turn girls away because, like I said, I do have other staff put in place, but it is more geared towards boys. So
from your book, if we were to give this to a teenager, a 15, 16-year-old to read this book, what do you think that they would get out of this book?
I think that they would see me now, like people see me now, and when I stand in front of them, they think I've never been through nothing, and I think that they would be like, wow, and I think they'd be inspired to know that they can drop whatever they're doing that's wrong and get on a positive life and realize that two things, okay, that I may have been through hell, but there's grace with me, and I like your title of the show, and there's a better you.
Thank you so much.
That's what I believe.
We're going to take a short break while I contain myself, and we're going to come right back. I got to ask you some more questions about your book. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
2 outs with a runner on first base. Now the big guy comes up to bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
Welcome back to Better. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with William. We're talking about his book, From Hell to Grace. Now, William, we've talked about your book a lot and talked about what you think kids are going to get out of your book. Will there be another one?
Yes, there will be several. There will be several. I have a title that I'm praying over now. And it's a book that I'm reading right now by Robert Moore. It's called The Blessed Life at Our Church. And I'm kind of almost gearing towards that to let people know how somebody came from being poor to bless. And so I'm kind of thinking along those lines to try to help people to understand of the goodness of God.
Do you think that one day that maybe this book could be a movie?
Well, it's funny that you said that because I would say that you're about the 6th person who has said that. There's a lot of people who inspire me, and there's a few people who I did allow to read the script, and it's like, wow, this is a movie. So you know, we just let God do what He do, and I do what I do. But I pray that it does turn into a movie that it will inspire other people to want to turn their life over to Christ. Because that's what I wrote the book for, to show people that they could turn their life over to Christ, and life is never over for them.
If you had some lasting words for my viewers, what would you say to them now about your book, about your organization, and the things that they can and cannot do?
I would tell the viewers this. Never waste your time with what you can't do. Always find what you can do and stick to that. You may not be a good person who do math, but you may be a good person who does English. And if you're a good person who does English, then stick to that. Don't focus on you're not good in math, because when you focus on that, then you're going to fail. Always remember that no matter what hell that you've been through, grace has always been there for you. Always remember this, that there is people just like Miss Cynthia who will let you know that there's a better you. And when you know that there's a better you want to do better. So my thing to the audience is this. I would encourage you to do a self-assessment and find out what is in you. No matter what hell you've been through, what is in you that could make a difference in somebody else's life.
Also, before we leave, your book's coming out soon, and if people wanted to know more information about not only the book, but your organization, is there a website they could go to? Yes,
they could go to my website, as I mentioned before, www.projectrestorationinc.us. They could mention that, and the book will be released this March of 2013, and they could go there for the release date.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me here on Public Access 21, A Better You, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you.